Airliner passenger rights are currently in play. EU governments have agreed to a controversial legal reform which allows charging for hand luggage, for example. Other rights have been strengthened in regulations on air passenger rights and airline liability. EU Code explains what to expect when traveling by air in the EU.
One of the updates concerns compensation for flight delays. Delay is currently defined as 3 hours for short-haul flights, with passengers receiving €250. The revision sets 4 hours as the threshold for both short-haul and medium-haul flights, with passengers receiving €300. The revision increases the current delay from 3 to 6 hours for long-haul flights and reduces the current compensation of €600 to €500. In addition, airliners will be able to charge passengers for luggage placed in the cabin, with only small bags that fit under the seat being free.
The European Parliament will now examine the proposed update and decide to amend it or reject it. Let's hear what Europeans think of the possible changes.
Je trouve pas ça tellement important. 3 heures, 4 heures, mon Dieu, 1 heure de plus.
Je mettrai plus dans ma grosse valise et je ne prendrai pas de petite. Ça ne me dérange pas plus que ça non plus.
Il ne devrait pas faire plein de démarches et il devrait nous rembourser, point barre.
Si de continuar así, daqui a pouco vamos a ter que pagar por nosso próprio peso.
Mal, mas é mais por uma questão de transparência, porque quando estamos a fazer as reservas, há imensos opcionais e nós nunca sabemos quanto é que vai ficar o preço final.
Euronews reporter Grégoire Laurie has covered this process. What can we expect from the European Parliament regarding the review of passengers' rights, notably the right to compensation for delays?
It's going to be tough. The first group in the chamber, the EPP, warns that there is no way they should water down passengers' rights. So for the centre-right party, extending the delay to get compensation is a step in the wrong direction. The second group in the chamber, the S&D, is on the same direction. The group feels that the new rules favor airliners, and they ask also for automatic compensation, which means that passenger would get reimbursed within days and not within months.
There are other amendments that are less controversial, the right to assistance, to information. What else could change?
So the right of assistance is the right to get refreshment, food, accommodation in case of delay or cancellation. Airlines should provide this. If airlines fail to provide this, then passengers can make their own arrangement and get reimbursed afterwards. There's also the rerouting right. Airlines should provide the earliest opportunity for a rerouting for passengers, which means that maybe this rerouting will happen through another carriers or even another transport modes. Furthermore, airlines should act as swiftly as possible within 3 hours of a disruption. Otherwise, a passenger could make its own arrangement and ask for a compensation, which could be up to 400% of the original cost.
There was not enough to block these amendments during the vote at the EU Council of Ministers, but 4 countries refused them. It's Germany, Slovenia, Portugal and Spain. What were the main arguments?
So Spain is asking for legal, precise wording to avoid, technical issues that would allow airliners to avoid compensating passengers. And Madrid is particularly vocal on that question. The government fined in November 5 companies for abusive practices, not linked with compensation, but with charging hand luggage in cabin, for instance. Germany also considers that it's going to reduce the level of protection of consumers. So we can expect Germany to be front-runner during the negotiation that is going to take place.
The review also addresses abusive practices, notably the so-called no-show policy. Passengers cannot be denied boarding on a return flight simply because they did not use the outbound flight. In the event of cancellation less than 14 days before departure, airlines must provide pre-filled forms for payment of compensation.
Our guest is Agustin Reina, Director General of the European Consumer Organization, an entity that has produced a position paper on this review. Your immediate reaction to the ministerial agreement was to say, and I quote, "There's been a substantial reversal of fundamental rights." Let's start with the financial compensation for delays. What is the impact of changing from 3 to 4 hours in order to get that compensation?
So member states' agreement indeed to go to from 3 hours to 4 hours a compensation would imply that roughly 50% of people that today are entitled to get compensation in case of a delay, they will not have this right anymore. 3 hours have been identified also by the Court of Justice as the appropriate threshold. And consumers are used to this parameter in order to assess whether they can claim compensation or not. So therefore, increasing that threshold gives more flexibility to the airlines, but also means that consumers will end up waiting for much longer in order not only to get their flight eventually, but also to claim compensation.
Regarding the payment for cabin luggage, your organization has issued several warnings that decisions by the European Court of Justice are being disregarded. How so?
The practice of charging consumers for their carry-on luggage on board, especially by low-cost carriers, is illegal. It's illegal under EU law, and it's also illegal under the case law of the European Court of Justice. So one of the problems that we have identified in the texts that have been agreed by the member states is that now they're legitimizing that practice. And bringing a carry-on luggage doesn't have an extra cost for the airline. In this case, there is no additional cost for an airline. So basically, the practice of charging consumers is just basically to extract more money from their customers.
Do you think this review could encourage airlines to go even further in charging for other services, especially the flagship airlines that tend to be less restrictive than the low-cost ones?
We don't have a crystal ball, but the reality is that now this position of the member states leaves the door open. So we could see these business models evolving in the future. So there is a matter of ensuring that there is a minimum level of quality when European consumers take a flight.
Airlines for Europe welcome the government's position. This organization, which represents 80% of European air traffic, said that the review will allow for companies to offer the best possible package for consumers. However, depending on the European Parliament, the decade-long review may take some more time to reach conclusion.